Fred West was one of the United Kingdom's most notorious serial killers, linked to 12 murders committed between 1967 and 1987. He and his second wife, Rose, primarily targeted women and girls in and around Gloucester, England. The couple brutally assaulted, killed and dismembered their victims, which included 2 of their daughters and Fred's first wife. Throughout this period, Fred served 2 short stints in prison and was fined for assault, but still managed to evade greater police scrutiny. The investigation into Fred's crimes began in 1994, when authorities reopened the case regarding the disappearance of the couple's 15-year-old daughter, Heather West. After rumours that Heather was buried under the patio, the police began excavating at 25 Cromwell Street, and what they discovered was horrific. Beneath the garden slabs, they found human bones of more than one body, along with teeth and jaw fragments. Along with the remains, officers stumbled upon other gruesome evidence, including the tools used to torture their victims. Fred West quickly confessed to the murder of Heather, but he didn't stop there. He kept talking, saying, "There's more, 11 more." He even provided information on where to find his victims' bodies. Fred took full responsibility for the murders and did everything he could to protect his wife, Rose, from being implicated in his horrific activities that involved rape, torture, and murder. Fred's devotion to Rose was so intense that just before he handed himself over to the police, he reportedly told his son Stephen, "Look son, take care of your mum and sell the house. I've done something really bad. I want you to go to the papers and make as much money as you can." However, the police suspected that Fred had not acted alone, and shortly after their investigation began, the body of his stepdaughter Charmaine, from his first marriage to Rena Costello, was found in the cellar of a house where Fred and Rose had previously been a tenant. Dental records confirmed that Charmaine had been killed while Fred was in prison for theft, leaving Rose as the only other possible suspect in her murder. Rose was soon arrested and charged with multiple murders, all of which she denied. After their arrests, Fred and Rose West didn't see each other again until their joint appearance in court. Fred watched Rose throughout the court proceedings, trying to catch her eye, and even attempting to reach out to her at one point, but she remained indifferent. Fred's solicitor, Howard Ogden, noted, "She was stony-faced and cold, which was a big shock to Fred. He expected her to be desperate to embrace him and grateful for taking the blame, but instead she seemed focused on saving herself." After the court appearance, Fred was devastated. In all the interviews prior to seeing Rose in court, he had always admitted that he was solely responsible for the deaths. However, he suddenly began responding with no comment when the police sought more information. This change had severe consequences for Rose, as she could no longer maintain her claim that Fred was the only one responsible, and the evidence against her was piling up. Incarceration. Since his arrest, Fred had resided at HMP Winson Green in Birmingham. He had been charged with the murder of 12 women and girls and was awaiting trial. At the time, the 52-year-old was the most notorious prisoner in Britain, with his face gracing the front pages of every newspaper for weeks, with friends and former acquaintances sharing their stories, revealing disturbing aspects of Fred's life. It was during his time on remand in D Wing of the austere prison that the most revealing insights into his character emerged. Officially, he was known as prisoner WN3617, but to the other inmates he was referred to as the Digger, a nickname he acquired soon after arriving in the Birmingham prison from the police cells in Gloucester. As a high-security remand prisoner, he was placed in a solitary cell and received the same protection as a sex offender due to concerns that he could become a target for violent inmates. This wing was specifically reserved for individuals who might be targeted because of the nature of their crimes. David Morgan, known as Rackham's Slasher, who was on remand for the attempted murder of 10 women in a Birmingham department store, was housed just 4 cells away from him. However, it was West himself who posed the greatest risk to his own well-being. He was known to be depressed and occasionally exhibited irrational behaviour, yet authorities did not seriously consider the possibility that he might take his own life. His records from previous prison stays indicated a long-standing fear of incarceration, but there were no concerns that this fear would push him to the edge. Instead, he seemed to settle into the routine of prison life, even personalising his cell to make it feel like home, complete with his own set of curtains and bedding. Due to the scale of his case and the numerous witnesses involved, West spent much of his time in interview sessions with detectives or his legal team. When he wasn't being interviewed, he used his limited English skills to write a book about his crimes, although it was unlikely to ever be published. His son, Steve, revealed to journalists that his father had the reading and writing skills of a 10-year-old, which was further complicated by arthritis in his arms from years of working as a builder. During his relaxation time, he would lie around smoking roll-ups, worrying about his house, his pet goldfish, and what would happen to his family. Fellow prisoners noted his jovial nature and apparent lack of concern for his actions. Outwardly, there were no changes in his routine to suggest that anything might trigger his suicide, but internally, West was beginning to crack. Fred West was no stranger to prisons. Although he had experience on the inside, he was not particularly tough behind bars. He spent New Year's Eve 1994 playing pool and watching television. New Year's Day began with breakfast. The initially strict suicide watch had been relaxed and Fred was allowed into the exercise area. At noon, he returned to his cell with his lunch of chicken soup and pork chops and was locked in. During the next hour, West enacted his plan to take his own life. At around 1 p.m, the door was scheduled to be opened so he could wash his crockery and begin his period of association with other Category A prisoners. Before this could happen, however, West jammed the door shut to ensure he would not be disturbed. Inside his cell, he had fashioned an improvised rope from a blanket and tags he had stolen from prison laundry bags. He quickly wrapped it around his neck and bound it to a door handle and window catchment before sinking to his knees and asphyxiating himself. At 12:55 p.m, prison officers found him hanging lifelessly from the noose, and despite the efforts of doctors, he was pronounced dead at 1:22 p.m. on January 1st, 1995, just weeks before his and Rose's murder trial was set to begin. Upon hearing the news, loud and sustained cheering erupted among his 800 fellow inmates. However, outside the prison there was dismay, and questions were raised about how a prisoner on remand for murder had been allowed to hang himself and whether Rosemary's trial could proceed. Reporters swarmed the gates and victims' families wept, not with relief, but with rage. "He got away," one said. "He robbed us of the truth." Reaction and suicide note. Fred left a suicide note that served as a final love letter to his wife and included his chilling last wish. The note said, "Well, Rose, it's your birthday on the 29th of November 1994, and you will be 41 and still beautiful and still lovely, and I love you. We will always be in love. The most wonderful thing in my life was when I met you. Our love is special to us. So, love, keep your promises to me. You know what they are. Where we are put together forever and ever is up to you. We loved Heather, both of us. I would love Charmaine to be with Heather and Rena. You will always be Mrs. West, all over the world. That is important to me and to you. I haven't got you a present, but all I have is my life. I will give it to you, my darling. When you are ready, come to me. I will be waiting for you." Beneath the note was a drawing of a gravestone featuring the words, "In loving memory of Fred West and Rose West. Rest in peace where no shadow falls. In perfect peace he waits for Rose, his wife." The news of Fred West's death was given to his wife, Rosemary, at Pucklechurch Prison near Bristol. However, instead of feeling devastated, she appeared indifferent and showed no emotion. It seemed she might have seen this as an opportunity to escape her circumstances. Few tears were shed either when Fred was cremated in Coventry in March 1995, with only 4 attendees at the service. Ultimately, concerns that Rosemary might escape justice due to Fred's suicide were unfounded. In October 1995, she was tried at Winchester Crown Court, found guilty of all 10 murders, and sentenced to life imprisonment. The trial judge recommended that she should never be released, a recommendation that the then serving Home Secretary, Jack Straw, agreed with 18 months later. At the time of writing this, 71-year-old Rosemary West is incarcerated at HMP New Hall, near Wakefield, West Yorkshire, and has changed her name to Jennifer Jones. According to reports, she rarely leaves her cell, can barely walk, and is ignored by her fellow prisoners. And although she never gets any visitors, she is inundated with postal cards from sick admirers on the outside. In October 1996, 25 Cromwell Street was demolished, and every single brick was ground to dust to prevent any trade in macabre souvenirs. A walkway is now in the spot where the house used to stand. The true number of the West's victims will likely never be known. Psychologists speculate that the murder of their own daughter, Heather, in 1987 was unlikely to have been the last. There are fears that Fred may have butchered and buried as many as 30 women. Fred didn't face trial. He didn't face the families. He didn't face the truth.